Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's program where we discuss the Rawlings Library Renovation, an exciting moment here in Pueblo, Colorado. Tonight joining me is Executive Director John Walker, as well as members of our architecture and construction teams to discuss the project that we have at hand with the Rawlings Renovation, to answer your questions, and to really get the community excited about the project that we have here with the Rawlings Library. Our first presenter this evening is Executive Director of the Pueblo City County Library District, John Walker. John?
Thank you, Nick. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's program via YouTube or Facebook. As Nick said, my name is John Walker, and it's an honor for me to serve as the Executive Director for the Pueblo City County Library. Tonight, we're going to share information about the current status of plans to update the Rawlings Library. This is our flagship for our local public library system here in Pueblo County. For additional information and ongoing updates as we move through the project and after tonight, I invite you to make note of the website that you see on your screen right now, www.pueblolibrary.org/Rawlings Renovation to stay up to date on the project. Our agenda tonight is pretty simple. I'll do this brief introduction and wrap up here in just a couple of minutes. We'll introduce the design team, the principals from the design team. We'll introduce the construction team, principals again from the construction team. And then we'll have a Q&A via chat. There should be a chat mode in your panel as you join in, and we'll monitor that chat. And this will take about 1 hour. We've go from now until 6:30 p.m. and we'll close at that point. Again, thank you so much for joining us. So the Rawlings project, the idea of renovating and updating this iconic building here in Pueblo, really started 3 years ago in 2018 when we first began to engage our local community and have internal discussions among the staff and the library trustees, other library stakeholders about refreshing this important building in our community. I'll remind everyone on the call that the Rawlings Library opened to the public in 2003 after a construction program during those previous couple of years. Since the opening of the building in 2003, more than 8 million people have visited this library alone, the Rawlings Library. And about 14 million books, actually more than 14 million books and library materials have been checked out from this library since it's first opened almost 2 decades ago now. It's definitely been a busy place. And our goal with the current refresh is to ensure the building is updated so it can serve the next 20 years as well as it has the past 20 years. People are always interested in budgetary matters, and so what you're seeing on your screen now is the budget for the project. We have put together a robust budget to accomplish the task at hand, which is to update and renovate this important building. You can see $9 million approximately for construction, almost $1 million for furniture, about $600,000 for specialty exhibits and equipment, almost $900,000 for design and engineering, $300,000 for some miscellaneous expenses, and we're also holding $450,000 in contingency during the course of the project. And in total, $12.2 million is what is allocated for the project at this time. We have a great team of design and construction professionals to bring the project home. And we're just really excited to have them on board. You'll be meeting them here in the next few minutes. The library trustees in June have given the project the go-ahead, and final construction documents have been prepared. Bidding has been completed, and the construction is set to begin now as we move into mid-August. So with no further ado, I'd like to now introduce to you Andy Nielsen, principal with Anderson Mason Dale Architects, and Peter Bullock, who's president of HBM Architects, who will review the design with you. And I will hand it off to them at this point.
Okay. And I'll see if I can share my screen. This is Andy Nielsen. Hello, everybody. Nice to be with you all. We're all getting used to Nick's exciting method of presenting. It's really cool. Hopefully you can all see.
Whoops, Peter, I think we lost Andy there. Oh, there he is. We lost you for a second, Andy.
Okay. You got me back?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, this is the updated version. This is an image from 20 or so years ago of the Rawlings Library, which we were really thrilled to be able to work on, and thought it might be fun to start with a little project history, talk about some of the goals and objectives that John and his team and the community laid out for us, how those translated into a final design, a little bit about where we are in the schedule, and then kind of hand it off to the folks from Houston Construction, who can take you through some of the construction aspects of the project. So this is a picture of me when I was much younger, 20 years ago. I'm the guy on the left. That's Antoine Predock on the right. He was the original architect with our firm of the original library when we added on to the McClellan library, which used to sit at Mesa Junction. In any event, we had a great experience working with him, and one of the key things that Antoine did was really connect with the Pueblo community and try and bring some of the spirit of the Pueblo community into the building in a fresh and interesting way. And this was a cultural snapshot, a cultural image board that we created working with the community. Many in the community came to the meetings and provided quotes or images of folks that had been influential in the history of Pueblo, and those became this collage that inspired the form making of the building, working with Antoine. This then was what the resulted, which is the image of Mesa Junction in 2001, which was quite transformational, for those of you who recall it. But now we're moving on, and Peter and his team came in 2019 and started a master plan update. You could talk about, Peter.
Yeah, Andy. So it was actually 2018, and as John mentioned, it's been about 3 years now, and I've had the good fortune of working with the library since then on the initial phase one, the planning of the project. And it's interesting because I didn't know at that time in 2018 and 2019 that Andy had this wonderful photograph of him and Antoine in front of this cultural mural that was created about the importance in things in culturally in Pueblo. And we, in fact, did the same thing, but in a little bit different medium. When we began the master planning, we also engaged with the community to find out about what was important in the community. And we created a mural that was based on people bringing photographs that were important to them around a certain topic culturally that was important to them. And we asked them to tell their story about that photograph. And through that course of events and a number of photographs, it created that 2018 or 19 modern cultural mural like was done back in 2001. Andy, I'm not seeing the slideshow. Is that still up? Okay.
So I've advanced now to the three options.
Okay, got it now. So out of that effort and really dissecting the building, looking at things that were working, things that weren't working, and bringing a forward-thinking 21st century modern library plan idea to the building, we developed essentially three different design options at that time in 2019, three different directions in which the library could move forward with in reimagining or refreshing the Rawlings Library. And so that brings us here to today with our work with Anderson Mason Dale and Andy. And Andy, you want to review some of those goals and objectives?
Sure. Yeah. So these are some of the, I think these are, I mean, it's kind of dry, but it's interesting because I think these are important to for you all to understand where the roots of this project. A lot of them should resonate for many people. Just the idea of respecting the artistic, architectural, and poetic intent of the original design, making the building flow seamlessly as a public library, creating distinct legible spaces of the various collections, leveraging an NEH grant, that's the National Endowment for the Humanities, regarding the historical treasures housed in the library on the third floor, developing an imaginative and engaging multi-generational. That was a really important concept that's come out in both 2001 and 2018-19, and really reinforcing the idea of an exceptional children's experience as well. And then rebalancing people space with a space for the evolving collection. This is such an important aspect of how, the notion of the public library has changed so much since 2001. And the idea is to kind of rebalance how the space is used. And then, of course, as always, as John mentioned, the budget, we've been respectful of that throughout this process. And then there's some truly functional project goals that you guys probably all really resonate for you. The idea of improving vehicular and pedestrian access to the front door. The courtyard was a very important part of the original design of the library, but it's created some challenges over the years, and we hope we've come up with some solutions that honor it, historically and its architectural impact on the design, but also that really advance the library into this millennium. We also wanted to develop more of an outdoor park-like venue, create an in-building drive-up book drop, so something that kind of changes the way you all might engage, that you can actually just get your car right up to the side of the building and leave your book off. Providing an enhanced makerspace rather than the small one. We have a really significant new makerspace. Expanding public meeting capacity. Obviously, meetings have changed a lot in the way we've been dealing with them over the last few years, but certainly we are expecting that the idea of us getting together and having a place like the library to do that will be really important going forward. Creating an exhibit focus on level 1, creating a cafe also on level 1 to really activate it. You've had different versions of that over the years, but now is the time to really create a special place there that will serve as a cafe and a gathering place. Consolidating the physical collections for all ages on the different wings of level 2. There's going to be some real functional aspects of that, of all the collections for all different ages on one level. And then upgrading level 3, that was related to the NEH grant for the archival commitment and the local history focus. And then really creating a truly special preeminent venue for the city on level 4, expanding the capacity, relocating the info zone, and making something really special happen on the top floor for everybody. So with that, we want to go through just the final design. You've seen this image, I think, before, but this is an image from Abriendo looking at the front entrance where the courtyard is going to become what we're calling a mobility plaza, where people will actually be able to drive cars up to the front door to drop people off. But there'll be a nice mix and a very safe mix of pedestrian and vehicular traffic through there. But it's just allowing a much more direct access to the front door. This is more evident in this site plan. For those of you that can read a plan, this is that mobility plaza right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's a large tree at the center of it. The main entrance will remain in the same place. The reflecting pool will remain. But you will still enter off of Abriendo, but Bates Lane will no longer be a vehicular path, but just a pedestrian path through the site under the bridge. There will be an amphitheater space in the shade of the bridge that will have some stones for sitting on and more informal kind of amphitheater type activity. There will be this drive-up book drop that we've mentioned here that connects into the lower level down on the east side of the building. So those, and then we also are, one of the other enhancements is adding new cooling equipment, and we created a space for that on that northwest corner. Let me move on to the next. So, but the real, so that's the site stuff that's been going on, but then the real bulk of the work is happening inside, and this real transformational aspect of each level is getting a new look, and a new feel. And we want to take you through some of those different plans to just describe exactly how things will be working. And Peter's going to start with a little giving you a little sense of where we translated some of that community and cultural input into the design of the building.
Yeah, and really, where did we draw inspiration from for the interior palette of the project? And as Andy mentioned, most of the effort is in the inside and creating and refreshing the space. And, when we were doing the planning in 2018 and 19 and engaged with the community, we really understood what was important to the community. Now we're here in the design phase, so we look at things that can inspire what that palette might be. Obviously, your natural landscape, the mountain range, wonderful environment to really be seated in and have views of. Obviously, right downtown, the Riverwalk and all the amenities around it was a very popular and cherished element. The different activities that happen within Pueblo, different markets, and then the mural of the history of Pueblo, but also the really spectacular architecture of the Rawlings building was really something that was very much cherished and important to everyone in the community that we talked with. And so these are the type of things that combined bring the ideas forward to say, here's what we can do with the space to refresh and bring a new experience to the community. Next slide, please. And so the interior palette started to develop. Here we call this a mood board. It kind of suggests the main elements of the interior palette of the refresh. And because we all felt strongly that we wanted to honor the original architecture, we established a palette that was pretty neutral on the building form on the interior, and it bases itself with this kind of charcoal gray carpet and neutral wall coloring. This will allow us to do a number of things, but most importantly, respect the historic architectural elements that were designed back when the first building was built into the next renovation in 2001 and then today. But it will also allow us to pop certain elements within this building forward to be very, very wonderfully experienced. The one thing would be the shelving that would be incorporated within the building. We were deciding to use this white shelving that would really kind of pop off of the charcoal gray color of the base floor and really enhance the collection and create a really wonderfully browsable collection. And then bringing in color in different aspects of the space, whether it's in furnishings or play, learn, and grow components that might be in the children's area, or just in different fabrics or wall treatments that might bring an accent piece into different spaces of the building. I also want to mention too, the carpeting has a very geometric and angular form of pattern, which I think is really kind of balancing into the sharp and angular forms of the original architecture. So these things are in the kind of back of our mind as we start to envision a new layout functionally and as a new layout aesthetically.
Great. So what we want to try to do is take you through just floor by floor what's going on. The lowest level is not really a very public floor. It's not a public floor at all, actually, but the only area that we're doing some work on is right where the book drop will be, the new drive-up book drop. This will be where you drive in, and this pink area will be transformed to accept books. It's an IT area as well that will be enhanced, and then a automated material handling extension that will be added there as well to serve that book drop. So the real bulk of where things are very transformational is on level one, where the children's library is right now and some meeting rooms, but this will be a completely meeting and community oriented floor with the green rotating exhibit space here, the pink or purple maker space, the blue spaces are all meeting rooms, the circulation area, which is the staff area, is here, and then the info zone will be kind of at the very center of this, anchoring that lower level. And all the yellow space is cafe space. Peter, did you have any other thoughts on this?
Well, this starts to begin to really establish and demonstrate the idea of balancing people space with collection space. Here on the first floor, we wanted to have a really welcoming, inviting entrance to the building, a place where people can come and socially gather. That space that Andy mentioned, the yellow lounge area, is right off of a cafe. It's inside a window wall that will look at the great reflecting pool that's out in the courtyard. But this whole floor is about people space and social gathering, as well as programmatic features for the library. So all the turquoise or blue spaces are multi-purpose meeting spaces to allow the library to put on a vast majority of different programs at one time in different venues. So this is on this first floor, which we would really enhance as the people space.
So this is the image that you will, the updated image. Obviously, it's a rendered version, computer augmented rendered version of it. But this will be what you see as you come in the front door. But it will be changing constantly, because the entire area here where the two gentlemen are will be a rotating exhibit. So it will be constantly changing. Amy Nielsen has all these great ideas about what kinds of things exhibits can be brought in, and we're going to enhance some of the features of this area to make sure that the exhibits can all be accommodated nicely. So then as you walk over towards the stair, you're at the base of the stair here, looking towards the info zone. The reflecting pool is on the left over here. Alongside that reflecting pool will be open seating for folks that just come in and want to read a magazine or have a cup of coffee. This is the cafe that's kind of at the very heart of this new configuration. A service point also right there as you come in. So you'll have it all right there at your fingertips, and then you'll be able to make your way up the stair or the elevator to the collection space on the next floor. And then the info zone is not yet, it's in the process of being designed in a reconfigured location here. It's right at the heart of that level 1 space, really taking advantage of the windows that exist, looking out to the community. And Peter, did you have any other thoughts on?
Yeah, so I think this really first floor will become very active with multiple type of social engagement, whether it be people coming to spend time at the library for just entertainment or knowledge or relaxing with friends, or in programs, or experiencing the info zone here in multiple different ways.
Great. So then as you make your way up to the second floor, that's where the consolidated collections will be. So the children's library is located in this northwest corner, teen zone, and audiovisual in the east corner. And then to the south are the nonfiction and fiction collections for adults, right? At the heart is a tech hub space with computers for access.
Yeah, and also at the heart of this plan, when we bring the collection to the second floor and we organize it in a way that has kind of these distinct spaces for the different age groups of the population, centered in along this main stair is what we call a family zone. And we see that as a space where when someone comes with ages differing of children to seniors, they can be collected kind of in a space that's common to everyone, with activities, material, but then easy access to, whether it be the children's area if someone has a toddler or a juvenile that wants to explore that collection, or move over to the other side of the hall where there's a teen space that's a self-defined teen space. And then to the southern part of the plan is really the adult collection. And this is all really developed so that there's this hub of this family zone that these other collections kind of spoke off of this central hub.
So we have a few images that highlight some of the aspects of that. This is a view from the top of the stairs, looking at that family zone, which is separated from the children's area by a wall, but it's also a transparent wall, so kids will be able to see in and sort of playfully look through books like they're looking through a shop window, or they'll be able to go through a different scaled doorway to pass through into the children's library. But there's different scales of furniture so that folks of different sizes can all feel comfortable in this family zone. And there'll also be another service point right here as well.
Yeah, and that closure point to the children's area is important, one, for security and to give the children and parent and caregiver a sense of, closure to that area, but also for noise transmittance. So as an area in this floor, having all the collection up here, we want to make sure we're able to really mitigate louder spaces in this floor to quieter spaces. And we'll show you a couple of more remote spaces down towards the adult area. That's a quiet area. And so this whole floor plan is meant to be mitigated between louder to quieter with very distinct planes for separation of noise control.
Peter, maybe you could talk about the children's area here too.
Yeah, the early concept sketch of what happens in the children's area. I think one of the biggest things that would happen here is that kind of family kind of connectedness of parent or caregiver and child exploring the library. And so highlighting collection, displays of material, but also incorporating towards the back by the window wall there what we call a play, learn, and grow, or kind of interactive elements for children and caregiver or parents to have fun with at the library, learn, and spend some time rather than just quick in and out. So this is really meant to be a space that has a tremendous amount of flexibility to bring forward great activities and interests and programs and play spaces that children can really enjoy. And it could change and be very flexible throughout the year to incorporate new elements that might be of interest.
The other thing that we try to do with this renovation is really honor and celebrate some of the original architectural features. And I mentioned that at the end of that info zone space below, there's this major glass wall that extends all the way up through the building and captures views out to the northwest. And we want to make sure we honored that. And so, some of the elements that are in here still allow access and celebrate that idea of everybody having a connection from within the library out to those great views beyond.
Yeah. Just another image of areas that can be separated for different uses throughout the day. In general, this space is pretty open, and I think the intent here is to kind of highlight these views and bring in the natural light. But then within that space, even though it's pretty flexible and open, you can have these distinguished pods of activities that happen, like you see here along this wall, some activity center that you can have pinup or tack surfaces or a digital display and interactive with different elements.
And then once you go back out of the children's area and you're standing again at the top of the stairs looking to the east, you're looking into the teen area through the AV area. So the teens kind of have their own realm back there, but it's still, got a connection with the heart of the building. And then the AV is, of course, very accessible and connected to both of those areas.
And one thing that helps kind of separate or define the space are these small group study rooms. They can accommodate 1 to 2 to 4 people studying or working on something together, but they're also able to be used as some semi-private dividers between one space and the other. On the left here, you'd see the AV collection. On the right, it would go more towards the teen space. These study rooms have access to them from both sides, so they are meant to be a space that teens can use for studying or purposes that set of venue. But also, when the teens aren't in the library, these areas are also open to other age groups of the community for use.
And one thing that we've been finding in a lot of projects in the sort of post-COVID world is the need for some of these kinds of little breakout spaces that have some acoustic privacy for people that maybe a small group that need to connect on Zoom or something like that, don't really want to do it out in the broader room. So they have some of these kinds of spaces to do that. And we were able to add several of them into the project through this renovation. This is then a view of that tech core area this is at the top of the elevator. You're basically standing at the top of the stairs, looking past the elevators into the atrium and then beyond to the south to the adult collections and through this tech core area.
And this is a good view to just really demonstrate that as we move into the adult area and we start talking about that, most all the shelving is at a lower height so that there's more views across from one end of the space to the other, all the way to the end of this terminus to see that southern window at the end of the building there. And this area right along the center core is designed so that you can incorporate some soft seating amongst the collection, promoting a more browsable collection, so somebody can spend some time at the library with the material and really look for what their interests are. And then as you move back further into the building, the collection wraps around this kind of light well. Andy, I think you want to speak a little bit about that and how it animates the amphitheater below.
Yeah, so the idea here is these low shelves around the perimeter of that prism, that glass prism that opens to what we are now as an amphitheater below, will be shelves, low shelves, that will sort of reveal some of the content of the collection to folks down below. It just kind of adding another layer to the experience that was, what was formerly a roadway that you would be standing in the middle of. Now will be a amphitheater you can pause and look up and experience that prism space.
And then this is the farthest southern point of this floor. As I mentioned earlier, the kind of quiet to loud or loud to quiet space. This would be an area where we would say would be a little bit more quiet and contemplative space where somebody can work at a table and chairs or have a nice lounge seat and look out and get some natural light while they're reading at the library.
And so then from that second floor, you'd go up to the third floor, which is being in many ways transformed to really make a much more robust vault space. Where with this NEH grant, there's all sorts of extra requirements for how we deal with the HVAC systems and the exterior wall and the relationship that the archival materials have to that. So there'll be some really important transformation in that space on that top floor, or on that third floor, excuse me. The other thing that we are adding on this floor too, that you'll see a rendering of, is the Hispanic Resource Center, which will be right here at the top, have its own little area at the top of the elevator as folks are accessing the administrative area as well. Let me go to the next one. And then we weren't doing much. One of the ideas was to really focus on the people space and the public spaces, and so the very modest modification to the administrative area, we're adding taking out a conference room and adding a couple extra office spaces for the staff area, but otherwise it's pretty modest in that area. So here's some renderings, and I think the one thing that this really highlights, this is standing at the stairs, looking along the south wall towards the courtyard, but you can see how within this genealogy area, there'll be low seating, and that space is really reserved for enjoying the connection to the outdoors with the materials that people might be using in their research, with some special lighting to deal with that. But the whole idea of that connection from the inside and the seating spaces along that south-facing glass was really important in this renovation. And then this is that Hispanic Resource Center where we're moving the mural and creating a real special space for that mural adjacent to here's the elevator, some seating areas and some spaces for the collection within that area as well. Anything else there, Peter? No?
No.
Okay. So then the top floor, as we mentioned, this idea of a truly special event space. It's a pretty interesting shaped space as it is, and we're still trying to leverage that and make it a little bit larger by relocating the info zone from there. We're filling in a little area of the floor there as well, but you'll still be able to capture great views out to the northwest from that space, and we'll scale it up so that you'll be able to have an event of up to 350 people at these 10 top tables. There's also an operable partition that we're adding to create a divisible space so that you'll be able to have two events at the same time in that same space. Here's a few views of that. This is the a very active pre-function space which shows how the terrace over here and the Riles Grand Ballroom beyond, the pre-function area at the top of the stairs, with folks gathering, and then again that expanded capacity with these large tables for a really robust and exciting banquet at that top floor. So that's kind of the design part. We wanted to just touch on the schedule, sort of where we've been. So we've been working on this project since a little over a year ago, and we've gone through a whole series of design phases, checking in with folks along the way. We're now in the beginning of August and just about to start construction. I've completed our documents, have the project on budget, and construction documents ready to go. The contractor's going to take over. And so with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to the folks from Houston Construction. That's Louis Nazario and Mark Taravella. And they have been working with us, frankly, all through much of the design phase, helping make sure that we're working the phasing properly and the constructability of things. So with that, I think I'll stop sharing and turn it over to those guys to take over.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Peter. As you can tell, it's a very fun and exciting project, as all the projects are for Pueblo City County Libraries. And it's an honor for me to be here and be able to talk to everybody today. I'd like to commend the design team. I mean, as you can see by the images, what a great transformation this will be for the library. And, you know, just living down the street on Abriendo, my kids have walked here their whole life. So I'm excited now. They're a little older, high school, and I'm excited to have them see the transformation. So thank you guys for that. And Nick and John, thanks for having us here. What we'd like to do is, obviously we've gone through the pre-construction side, which is working with Andy and his group to make sure that, you know, the intent of the project and the program was there, but also making sure that we're keeping with the schedule and the overall project budget. And so I think we've had a very, very successful pre-construction. In fact, with our local trade partners and subcontractors, we were able to get over 80% local participation on this project. So that is way huge and big in my heart. I know it is in the library's heart, to make sure that we have our local subcontractors and general contractors participating on this project. So right now I'm going to share my screen. I'd like to walk everybody through our phasing plan. I know Mark Taravella, our project manager on this project, has been working quite extensively to make sure that, you know, not only is the pre-construction making sure that we fulfill our obligation of making sure everything's in budget, but now that we're moving into construction, we want to make sure that we meet the timeline and work with the library on this project, which will be a lot of moving parts and pieces. We'll have to work very, very closely. We'll be getting into areas that'll be renovated, and then we'll have to relocate and move to different areas. So it'll be a kind of a step-by-step process, but Mark will walk you guys through that. So again, thank you for having us, and I'll shoot it over to Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Louis. Appreciate you. So I guess Andy and Peter really showed everybody well what is going to happen. So in putting together our phasing plan on how we're going to make it happen, we had to obviously talk to the library and the staff over there and figure out where we were going to move collections and put them while we're remodeling certain areas, and where that made most sense to do it. I guess not to bore anybody with details, but probably one of the most intricate, and I think Andy said this as well during his design presentation, that the first floor is very, very intricate. The children's area is there now. We moved that up to the fourth floor in conjunction with the library and some companies that they've hired to move shelving and furniture. And so we'll get that up so that the children can still access the library. I guess, you know, before I go any further with that, I will just say that we have made every effort to make sure that we can maintain pedestrian access throughout the library at all times, to keep every area that we're not working in at that time open, which I think was a huge thing for the library staff, and I'm sure it is for the patrons as well, that it be able to be used while we're doing construction. So sorry, I had to backtrack there for a second to tell everybody that, because I think it's important. But anyway, back to the first part of what we'll do. So the first level, when we do the cafe area and the maker space, etc., we'll be working on that area while the children's is up to the 4th floor, and then we'll move that stuff back down as soon as we're complete with that area. But I will say also that phase 1 includes a little bit of work on the lower level that Andy talked about as well, and Peter. But the site work is going to start going on right away as well. And I think that is really going to be the biggest change for the people in Pueblo. As far as what they're used to, we will be closing down Bates Avenue, as Andy said. So we'll have that blocked off right away, probably here in the next week. As a matter of fact, the next week or two, we'll start that process. And we'll close that down. It will be open to pedestrian access when we're finished. But for safety reasons, obviously, it will not be the case during construction. So, and then we'll start to work on the plaza. The parking lot to the northwest will be our staging area, so that will be closed during construction as well. That's the parking lot on the corner there of Union and Abriendo. And so I guess just for anybody listening today, so you know that will be closed off during the construction. We have to build the condensing enclosure out there too. So just for safety reasons, we will, however, have everything marked and fenced, just to keep everybody safe and directed in the right directions that they need to go to still access the library. As soon as we complete that, so that we have different phases in that. First phase 1, that'll take us into November on the 1st floor. Then 1A, that's the area Andy kind of talked about with the book drop, etc. We hope to have that done by the end of the year, so that the whole 1st floor is basically completed by the end of this year. That's the bulk of the disruptive work, and then we'll jump right into phase 2, what we're calling phase 2A. So if you kind of get a picture of what you see on the screen here, phase 2 in its entirety is basically level 2, and we have it broken up into 2A, which is the south wing. It's currently the fiction area, and it becomes the fiction and nonfiction combination. So we'll work on that. That'll take us a couple months to get that all remodeled and organized after stuff has been moved. The goal ultimately is to combine this phase 2B in with that as well, if we can find space for all the collections to move to. That's kind of the coordination it takes between us and the library and furniture movers right now, that we're trying to figure out. The more we can kind of get bigger areas to work on at once, the faster we can accomplish our mission. And so I think if we can get 2A and 2B done and move those collections over right away, that then leaves us to 2C, which some of those collections that are there currently move into what was 2B that we were just showing you on the screen. So then we can move into 2C, because all those collections in there will be able to be moved, and we can complete the finishes and construction that we need to in that area. And that should take us into the spring of 2022, and then March, April of then, and then we'll move right into phase 3. As Andy described, phase 3 is level 3, and that pretty much is the entire floor, with just modest construction, as Andy mentioned, in the administration area to the south wing. Not a whole lot going on in there, just some minor modifications, adding some offices and some lighting and flooring, just a refresh really. But the bulk of it obviously being in the genealogy history section there. We'll move those collections up to the 4th floor while we're doing construction there. And also we do have an infill, I believe Andy or Peter mentioned that as well, an infill of the 4th floor, which will occur during phase 3 as well. And that's just because it'll be so disruptive to the 3rd floor that we wanted to incorporate that at the same time. And we should be able to accomplish that by the end of the summer of 22. And then, of course, we move into phase 4, which is level 4, which you saw the beautiful renderings of that open space with all the tables, the event space up there, which should be pretty awesome. And so we'll be working on the lighting and flooring and getting that space up there ready to go. And, that'll take us into, let's call it the fall of 22. Some of these dates are still up in the air as of right now. Obviously, we have, some things that we have to deal with as far as getting with the library and working on moving collections and stuff like that. And so we don't know those exact time frame yet, but they have gotten a lot of those nailed down with some of the people that they've hired. And so that'll be exciting to get a complete project schedule together with all that information included. I know John's really excited to hear from us on exactly what that's going to be, and everybody else at the library. And so we'll get that together as soon as possible. We have meetings every week. We're going to continue to walk and meet with the library staff and our construction staff, and everybody will start to see stuff going on, the fencing and caution tapes and stuff like that, some signage directing people where to go. And we're really excited about it. We're going to start here, like I said, even as early as this week, you're going to start seeing some stuff start to move. So that pretty much takes us on where we're at on the construction schedule and where we're headed.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think what's super important is, we've done a lot of work with the library in that building, and it's always a fun, challenging project because at utmost, we want to make sure that circulation is still ongoing. We want to make sure that the patrons are safe. We want to make sure that the library doesn't lose all of its functions, and so it is always tight but a fluid schedule as far as how we move things around and work with the library and their staff to make sure that they're doing their job and making sure that all the patrons are safe the whole time we're doing it. So big kudos. Once we get into construction, to the construction team, because they've done it before and they'll do it again. So thanks, guys.
Well, that brings us to our question and answer section. And we did receive a couple of questions, and one of them that we received, I think you guys touched on a little bit, but I think kind of trying to flesh this out a little bit more, with the library staying open, how will this impact patrons, especially access to and from the building? Will the front door change? What should patrons know as they're trying to access the building during construction?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one. I think that's probably more relevant to what we're going to be doing. So yes, it will stay open. We will have, as I mentioned, signage directed towards where pedestrians need to go and how to get there. For access, the front door will be open for almost the entire project. There will be a time where we have to switch a few directional paths there at the front area, just because we are doing some work in that existing vestibule right there in the front. But really, I don't anticipate it, or we're going to try our very best to not make it any kind of a burden on the pedestrians and the users of the library, and just really try to make it as fluid as possible and as easy as possible to understand what's happening. And our staff will be on site happy to answer any questions that people might have on where they need to go. And I know the library staff will be ready for that as well.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that. We have a question from Joseph Clune. And Joseph would like to know, since the 4th floor is going to pretty dramatically change, where will the art and the program display areas be when the 4th floor changes?
Well, I could start with that one. The basic idea is that the info zone, that is the bulk of the display area on that 4th floor, is all moving down to the level 1, and it really is at the heart. Will be at the heart of level 1. A lot of the same pieces of the exhibit will still be there. The linotype machine, I believe, is in the plans, is to relocate that to the info zone on level 1. But then in addition to that, on level 1, we also have a rotating exhibit space that will have different exhibits changing through time that will be right at the entrance where the old cafe space was, and then extending across under that atrium space. So those are the two main areas where the display stuff that's been happening on the 4th floor will be located down onto level 1, much more really accessible to the public on a kind of day in, day out basis. I think the idea will be that people might come in to the cafe, wander through the info zone, wander through the exhibits, and then maybe sit back down and have some coffee and talk about what they've been seeing. So it seems like it might be some real nice synergy with all those different spaces of public access on that level.
Great, thank you. We did have a couple of comments. I just wanted to call them out. Lily Sanchez said that this is fantastic. And we also have S.A. Valdez, who said, so exciting that the reflecting pool will now be more visible from the inside in a more common area. So thank you all for those comments. We have one more question that has to do with the cafe space. And the cafe space was mentioned as part of the first floor renovation. What will that serve food and beverage, or can somebody talk a little bit more about the cafe space?
John, do you want to talk about that? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, this is John. I'm happy to take that one. So we've engaged with a local proprietor to operate that coffee shop and cafe. It'll be a barista-served cafe, and we're just really excited that we'll have this opportunity to partner with a local vendor. Many of you, or some of you, may be familiar with PJ's Coffee Shop, which is now operating in Pueblo West along Highway 50. Well, this will be the second PJ's Coffee outlet, and it will be in the Rawlings Library. So it'll be a barista-served cafe here in the Rawlings Library, serving coffees of all type, as well as light snacks and foods. So we're really excited about that.
Great. And with that, we don't have any additional questions that have been submitted. However, many of you may be watching this as part of a recording that has been after the fact, after this is aired. So please feel free to add a comment into the comment box on either Facebook or YouTube, and a library staff member will answer your question after the fact. And then for closing remarks, I will transition over to John Walker to lead us out of this program. John?
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. This is a wonderful project, and I am very confident we have a great professional team of partners who are going to help us get this done. We plan to keep the library open during construction, as you heard, and construction will be phased over a 12-month period. So at this time of year, in about 1 year from now, the updated library will be completed. But I do have to add that during the course of the upcoming 12 months, there will be disruptions to normal service as we go through the construction process. The library will remain open during construction, although I hope that you'll pardon us, because as we go through these updates and changes and improvements to the library, there will be different times and different periods when different services will be abridged to one extent or another. So please pardon our progress as we go through this process. And we hope, and I believe fully, that at the end of it, we will have a library that will be able to serve our community well for decades to come. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. I want to thank Andy and Peter and Lewis and Mark from our partners with AMD and HBM and Houston Construction for joining us tonight and presenting. And I want to thank Nick Potter from the library's staff for hosting this meeting on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you all and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.